way or the way to liberation. Freedom, the way of liberation. As we've begun addressing certain issues, we are finding that we are stirring up certain devils. Amen. Also, we are coming to the clarity and the understanding that everyone is not celebrating the liberation of a people. Amen. Many people will begin to say, well, Prophet Jordan, the way you sound like a racist. And again, we have to continue to say this over and over, that in the sense of the word, I cannot be a racist because I don't have the power to oppress anyone. We don't have the power to enforce our views on anyone. So therefore, according to Webster Dictionary, we do not have the ability, it is not something that is possible that we can be racist. Amen. But it is interesting that when you start to talk about black, it is interpreted in the minds of Americans that you are against white. Amen. I am accused of being guilty for loving myself and my people. Amen. That was penalty number one. Penalty number two, I am guilty of trying to make man. So when you start to tamper with something that the system has been totally against, for God begins to say in his word, let us make man. Amen. In Genesis chapter 1 and verse 26 it says, and God said, let us make man in our what? Image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the what? Fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own what? Image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And God did what to them? Now, we need to understand here that God starts out saying, let us make man. He begins to create man, amen, in his image and after his likeness. The Bible also lets us know, amen, that he created man to have dominion. And the law of dominion states that whatever thing I don't have dominion over, that thing has dominion over me. As we also begin to look at some areas, and as we begin to wonder why in the world in America are we dealing with certain issues. We're dealing with racial issues. We are beginning now to see that here we are in the 1990s, we've gone around the corner, we're back in the same neighborhood as we were in the 60s, because we've got to undo some things that have already been done, amen, because the job is not yet finished. Touch your neighbor and say the job is not done yet. Amen. So therefore, God in this hour is raising up a new generation. Amen. If you have not noticed, we are in a radical generation. You have most people, young people in our generation today are embracing Malcolm X as a hero. Amen. They begun to see some of the things that have taken place through the civil rights movement, though both of those movements were needed. Amen. But yet now we are dealing with a generation that have come to the conclusion that integration really has not advanced us forward as a people, but in a way now some people have profited, but as a group as a whole, we are poorer. Our poor is poorer. Amen. We have less businesses in our communities, and therefore we are beginning to see that there's been a setback. Touch your neighbor and say there's been a setback. And I am also afraid that I must make an announcement that integration was not something that was in the mind of our oppressor when he was really trying to bring this thing about, amen. You may say, well, why must this be discussed in the church? Because if the church does not deal with the issue, then who has the authority to deal with it and address it? Amen. The church is supposed to be the institution that's supposed to bring forth truth, correct the wrong, and make it right. To begin to bring forth that which is unrighteous, now to begin to destroy it and bring forth that which is righteous. Amen. So therefore we must bring justice in a system that is unrighteous. So what we have had was not really integration, but it was cultural surrender. So you are guilty if you begin to pick up your culture, because we've been taught that, you know, God can't use your culture. Not only are you in a system that begins to try to destroy your culture, but they try to make everything about your culture, Africans, look negative. You begin to get a picture of the Last Supper, they try to make Judas the darkest looking one in the picture. Hello, we're going to address some of these things today. Amen. When it's a bad lie, it says it's a black lie, but when it's, they call it a, see what I mean? If you go to the bakery and you tell them you want angel food cake, they give you cake that looks white. But you tell them you want devil food, they give you cake that looks when you're guilty of betraying someone, they don't call it white male, but they call it. So we are in a society and a culture that has tried to make everything that is black, to make it look like that it is evil, it is corrupt, amen. And everything that is white is right. Where we need to begin now to re-examine the truth. We have got to get new definitions for our words. We're dealing with a society that has been corrupt, evil, that has dehumanized a race of people. Amen. We need to begin to understand in this hour that anything that is white kills. Salt, sugar, flour. And when you're dealing with folks with a slave mentality, they always want to reach back into slavery of the food that they had in Egypt. And I want you to know that you are killing yourself with the salt and the sugar and the flour. Touch your neighbor and say, let go of the three white killers. So now we are called upon to address some issues. Some will say, are you against white people? No, that would be total stupidity. But we are against white supremacy. White male dominance that has come to enslave or to make you and I look inferior, that even as you begin to climb the corporate ladder, they begin to show you the American dream, but as you start going up, you begin to discover that it's an American nightmare because they have a glass ceiling over your head. They say you can see in, but you can't get in. And some of you have been bumping your heads up against that ceiling lately. And all of a sudden, you're trying to figure it out and you're still scratching because you still haven't gotten the revelation, because you're still trying to become something that you're not. So you're still seeing in, but you're not getting in. When we begin to discover that God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Man, this man that was created out of soil, where God began with his first man on the continent as known today, known as Africa. Amen. We begin to see that he takes a man named Adam. Amen.